Now to the winner. This young woman really wants to change things for the better, but her nominators say she's also really good fun. Caring, considerate, and thoughtful, her colleagues value her tremendously. She lives her Liberal Democrat values in every way possible, unafraid, determined, demanding better for women and better from government and systems. Her outstanding commitment and dedication has meant that in a very short space of time, she and the team have achieved a major change in the law. Now, she may not be visible to you, but her nominators say she went well above and beyond her duty and her role. She tackled Tory MPs and senior civil servants who were against the upskirting bill and forced them to listen. She spent many hours working on the bill alongside her other duties, working with researchers, writers, clerks of the House of Commons, and influencing MPs from all the other parties, journalists and civil servants. Now, despite the fact she didn't front the work, her boss and one of her greatest cheerleaders, Vera Hobhouse MP, says she is quite extraordinary. And what's more, she's just 21 years old and in her first job at Westminster. So it gives me great pleasure to give the Patsy Colton Award to Jess Clayton. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Come round here. There we go. Hang on. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Now, we finally come to the President's Award. And this award is to recognise members who have, over many years, demonstrated excellent service to the party, well above and beyond the call of duty. And this year, we have 4 winners, because it was just impossible to decide between each and every one of them, who are outstanding and each thoroughly deserve to win. I'm going to ask them all to come up together at the end. First is an individual who joined the party 60 years ago, and I'm reliably informed that during those 60 years, not a week has gone by without him doing something for the party, canvassing in every general election from 1959 to 2017, and with no sign of stopping anytime soon. His indomitable services to the party continue still, with his being elected to his local parish council this year, aged 85, for the very first time of asking. Martin Curl is the first of our winners. Next is a man who has done just about every volunteer job in the party that you can do. Chair of his local party, member of the Federal Executive, member of Federal Conference Committee, chair of his Regional Candidates Committee, and then chair of his region. He reinvigorated a flagging Parliamentary Candidates Association nearly 20 years ago, which grew in strength and provided vital support to many of us candidates over those years. One fun fact that you may not know about Jock Gallagher, for it is he, is that he was the programme chief and editor for The Archers on BBC Radio. Perhaps that's why Mark Hebden stood for the SDP. Jock's contribution to the party over many decades is inspirational. He's a credit to the West Midlands, and they are lucky to have him and his talent in their ranks. Thank you. I hope that our next winner won't mind me saying that he looked really relieved when he turned up for conference this week for the first time in many years, long as I can remember. In fact, he's so relieved he's actually gone back to work today, so can't be with us. He was chair of your Federal Conference Committee for over 8 years, before standing down earlier this year. He saw us through with confidence all that was new to our party when we went into power and coalition, including increased security and everything else that went with it, which I'm sure you will remember. And he did it with such a good humour and a dedication to ensuring that you members got the debate on the topics that were important to you. So I hope that this award shows our gratitude for all the hard work that Andrew Wiseman has put in. The last winner is an unstoppable force of liberalism. Re-elected to Camden Council this year for the 9th time and in her 33rd year as a councillor, she was first elected back in 1986, topping the poll in her ward, which she duly did again this May. During her time on the council, this remarkable woman has served as group leader, building the group up from 2 members in one ward to 20 councillors and forming the administration. Now, as well as this, in 2014, a particularly difficult election in Camden, she held on, winning the only Lib Dem seat in the borough, continuing the fight for liberalism as she has done all these years. With 2 Lib Dems winning alongside her this May, she is now group leader again, and we look forward to seeing where she takes them next. It is, of course, the wonderful Flick Ray. Would all 3 of you please come up onto the stage? Flick. Hi, darling. Let me give you that one. Martin.
On the right.
We're European, aren't we? There we go. And Jock.
All right.
I'm so glad you're here. You stay on this side. Yeah. And that's your certificate. You hold it round, turn it round. Let's do a photograph. Come right in. There we go. Thank you very much. Thank you to all our award winners. So here we are, conference, at the end of conference after a few short days. And I really want to say thank you to all those who made conference not just possible, but a stunning success. So from the Lib Dems, here is a huge thank you to all the staff here at the Brighton Centre who've hosted our conference and exhibition, particularly to Don Hurley and his team, our venue event manager. And not forgetting the brilliant staff at the Hilton, led by Sarah Cross. And we thank Brighton for welcoming us all with open arms. We are supported by fantastic suppliers who care about the success of conference just as much as we do. Chris Dan and his crew at Quirk. They run the show, they make this fantastic stage set and always go above and beyond the call of duty. And the same goes for the fantastic Aztec team, led by Cameron McCurdy, who supply all our audio-visual throughout conference. They enable our training events to be heard and the material to be seen. And as always, please give a special thanks to our British Sign Language interpreters, the fabulous Claire Edwards, Harjit Jagdev, and Jane Barnett. They provide such an invaluable service. I want to add something special in here. You will remember the rally on Friday night. And I want to specially thank Claire for her beautiful rendition of the choir's songs, artistic and rhythmic. Thank you. And after I shouted out a certain phrase, all 3 of them have had to sign bollocks to Brexit a lot. Not just me, all of you. So now you know what bollocks to Brexit looks like. We are supported throughout by SPA, Complete Event Services, who ensure we run a safe and secure conference and who, as always, have shown great humour and professionalism all week. Thanks to Jerry and his team. And a big thank you also to our conference sponsors, exhibitors, advertisers, and fringe organisers who helped to create an interesting debate outside of the main conference auditorium. A big thank you too to Federal Conference Committee and Federal Policy Committee. And to our utterly amazing stewards team. See them in their yellow shirts all around us. Thank you. Thank you to all the parliamentary staff and the whip's offices who work so hard behind the scenes, and also our HQ teams, the Policy Office, Campaigns, Diversity and Candidates Office, Press Office, the Membership Team, the International Office, the fundraising team, and of course, last but most important, the Conference Office. Our head of conference, Mike Smith, who leads a team made up of Jack Everett, Diver Kisler, and Emma Price. Now, in fact, this is Mike, Diver's, and Jack's last conference. Good luck to them in their future, and many, many thanks to them all. And finally, I want to say two more thank yous. First to you, the members. Once again, you have shown to the outside world the face of a united party, but one that is unafraid to have a strong debate with each other, both in the hall, but also around the fringes of conference. You do listen to each other and argue fiercely, but at the end of each day, we come back together as a family because we share common values. Thank you. And finally, I want to thank my leader, Vince Cable. Vince, your first year as leader has just whizzed by. And during that year, we have won more by-election seats, gained 75 more seats in the local elections, and our poll rating is moving up steadily. Indeed, this morning, YouGov said we were at 11%. The media are turning to you as the voice of economic experience and someone who is unafraid to say that we should have a people's vote and that Liberal Democrats will fight for the UK's place in the EU. Conference is all but over. We're almost ready for that final act, but just before we hear from Vince, please welcome Lord Mike German.
We've got a bit of American music, which I wanted to play. We'll see. I hope you recognize the music. Bit of American theme here.
Better, we are going to need better choices. That's why the leader of the Liberal Democrats has proposed an ambitious plan to change the face of UK politics by seizing a once-in-a-generation opportunity to build a party into a movement. Step 1. Open up the party by creating a free, open and inclusive movement. Step 2. Let the people decide from a broad range of candidates who the leader of their movement should be. Step 3. Empower this movement by giving everyone a say over campaigning priorities. Step 4. Make it easier for new members to stand for public office and get involved in community campaigns. These proposals are just the beginning as we begin our consultation on how to build the most open and modern movement in UK history. You can have your say by visiting our consultation portal at libdems.org.uk/consultation. Take a minute to share your ideas, complete a survey and search for public consultations online or near you. Last spring, we passed a resolution to create a political and social movement which encourages people to take and use power in their own lives and communities at every level of society. This is the time for us to begin that movement together. It's time to demand better.
I want a better future for my two sons, and I'm genuinely worried about the way in which our country is going.
You know, in my area, I see often people who are struggling despite their best efforts. They're struggling to achieve a better life.
The government are absolutely focused on delivering some kind of Brexit, and actually they're not talking at all about the real issues that people have on a day-to-day basis.
We've got to focus on the things that make people angry and getting British society better balanced than it is at the moment.
Now, a lot of people work really hard, they're trying their best for their families, and they're just not getting anything back. I think as an MP, you really can make a difference if you're listening to people and hearing their concerns, and you can help their voice get louder.
I believe in working together to solve problems, and that actually if you put your faith in an individual, and that actually they've got the answers for their own life.
The job of government, as far as a Liberal is concerned, is to take power, to give it back, to give people the opportunity to make the best for themselves.
We do believe in the communities that we live in and represent, and we believe you build from the bottom up rather than the top down.
People who already have lots of money and assets and wealth seem to be able to make the system work for them.
We resent enormously the fact that the big multinational corporates somehow manage to avoid their responsibilities.
They don't pay the tax that I think that they should pay, and they pay their staff below the proper living wage.
I think that really irritates people, and we've just got to demand better. We've got to make sure that the system delivers for people.
It is the job of government to make sure that we have a proper system of taxation.
As an MP, my job is to demand better for my constituent and try and fix the system from within.
People respond to that. They want things to improve, and for so long now they've not really been seeing the improvement. So, I think it's right that we really do demand better from government.
Things should be better. You've got a right to have better services, and as Liberal Democrats we demand better services.
The time for waiting is over. Only the Liberal Democrats have the ideas, the experience, the commitment to transform the fortunes of our country. An exit from Brexit, a grown-up approach to the economy, and bold ideas to strengthen our society through the 21st century. I'm ready to take our message out to the country. And I ask you to join me on the journey as we together take the Liberal Democrats back to government. Thank you. Thank you, Conference. We meet here at an absolutely crucial moment, because in the next few months, the future of our country will be decided for decades to come. And history will record that Liberal Democrats have been on the right side of the Brexit argument. We were right to oppose Brexit in the first place. We were right to predict a bad deal, and we have been right to campaign for a people's vote. But this party knows better than any other that there are no prizes for being right. You know, we have to win. And the good news is that we are winning the argument. Brexit has left millions of people feeling frustrated and powerless and unrepresented. So as we campaign for a different future, we're inviting those people into our movement. It's not only those who voted Remain that are with us. More and more people are thinking again. There is now a growing realization that Brexit will be costly and painful. It will be very costly and very painful if we crash out without a deal. The Brexit day may be the 29th of March, but it is only maybe. Brexit is not inevitable. It can and it must be stopped. Over the summer, I spoke to rallies and meetings across Britain, from Bristol to Newcastle to Cambridge, and I saw that there are huge numbers of people who simply do not accept that we should drift into a messy, costly divorce, who don't accept that the country cannot change its mind, or that a narrow majority decision for one generation should blight the chances of the next. There are millions of people out there who haven't given up the fight, and nor will we. Now, I've put the Conservative Brexiteers into categories. There are the true believers, the chancers, and the conscripts. And let me say a bit about each. For the true believers, the fundamentalists, the costs of Brexit have always been irrelevant. Years of economic pain justified by the exotic spasm of leaving the European Union. Economic pain felt, of course, not by them, but by those least able to afford it. And the latest piece of nastiness from Jacob Rees-Mogg, calling into question the right of Europeans to stay in Britain and of Britons to stay in Europe, creating unnecessary worry and insecurity for millions. Now, the public, I don't think, mind what these people dream about behind closed doors, so long as their dreams don't become nightmares for the rest of us. I mean, it really beggars belief that the army and the police are now being asked to prepare for riots in the chaotic aftermath of a botched Brexit. And billions of taxpayers' money is being spent preparing for disaster. Do you remember what we were promised? It was all going to be so easy. A painless, quickie, Las Vegas-style divorce. And that brings me to the chancers and to Boris, the Chancellor-in-Chief. He and Michael Gove embraced Brexit after tossing a coin, or making a cold calculation about the quickest route to the top of the Conservative Party. And as Boris discovered in the last Tory leadership election, Michael Gove is the ideal man for a penalty shootout. Right to the last moment, you never know which way he will go. For his part, Boris Johnson is a real danger to Britain. He doesn't just resemble Trump, large, loud, and blonde. He behaves more like him every day. Their cynical disregard for the truth, the treatment of women, and their inflammatory, divisive language make Boris and Donald the terrible twins of the rabid right. Now, the Chancellor's answer to the prospect of pain is to ignore it, or lie about it, or say it's all the fault of Europe. But the true believers and the Chancellors all save their greatest contempt for their colleagues, the conscripts, among them the Prime Minister, the Chancellor, the Foreign Secretary, the Business Secretary. These are people who have signed up to Brexit out of a misplaced sense of duty. They all see the benefits of staying in the single market and the customs union, but they feel they must pretend otherwise. The conscripts are resigned to a bad outcome, so rather than fight, they've elevated damage limitation to a high principle. They fantasize over something called frictionless convergence. So no wonder the public doesn't understand what Brexit is supposed to mean. I would go so far as to say that some of us are starting to feel sorry for the Prime Minister. It seems that even the European leaders are moved to pity, and it's obvious why. She's dutifully delivering a policy she doesn't really believe in, failing in negotiations, losing public support, and it's all to appease a dwindling group of angry people in her own party who will denounce her as a traitor, whatever she comes up with. But when we feel sorry for the country's Prime Minister, something's seriously wrong. Our sympathy can only extend so far when she puts the interests of the country second to the whims of extremists in her party. Deep down, I believe, the Prime Minister knows that Brexit is a bad idea. It's a bad idea whose time has gone. And even now, Theresa May could shock us all by displaying true leadership. She could admit that the Brexit project has gone badly wrong by conceding that the deal, any deal or no deal, that she will bring back from Brussels is not going to be better for Britain than remaining in the European Union. Instead of kowtowing to her enemies in the Conservative Party, she could lead her party and the country by opening her mind to a people's vote on the final deal. It's far, far easier for Jeremy Corbyn to be brave on Brexit. And this is his big chance. He used to be the campaigning backbencher who joined us in opposing the Iraq War and defending civil liberties. In his new role, he's kept his hands clean and his image polished by hiring hard-left boot boys and girls to do his dirty work. They do the bullying and the intimidation, and he claims not to know. He indulges anti-Semitic bigots and pleads ignorance. But the nastiness should not be allowed to obscure his abstention from the biggest issue of the day. Because next week, hundreds, thousands of Labour members and MPs will demand that he changes course and backs a public vote on the final deal. And I would say that if Jeremy Corbyn will not say, I will support a people's vote and I will fight Brexit, Labour members should wave him goodbye. And the reason is that he's currently letting down the many people in Labour's heartland who now see Brexit for what it is. It's a Tory project pursued for Tory ends, of which working people will be the main victims. But when we secure a people's vote, we then face a huge challenge, which is winning it. I think we have to recognise that Brexit still appeals to many hearts, if not to many minds. The Brexit campaign stoked the worst prejudices about race and immigration. Do you remember those loathsome advertisements featuring queues of dark-skinned people? And the mendacious claim that we need to leave the European Union to stop 80 million Turks coming to live here. It was dreadful stuff. But that was the Leave campaign, not Leave voters. So we must sell better the benefits that immigration has brought to this country. To the workers who pay taxes, to support the welfare state and an aging population. And who are crucial to everything from the NHS, where there are currently 100,000 vacancies even today, to the high-tech industries. But if we want to be heard, we also have to listen. And we have to recognize that although overall immigration has not depressed wages, there is a strong public perception that it has done so in particular places and particular occupations or exacerbated pressures on housing and services. So we need to invest in those parts of the country which feel left behind, ensure that public funding keeps track of population growth so public services can keep up with demand. And I don't accept the idea that it is some form of racism to want immigration to be managed like other parts of the economy. I mean, I should say, I've had personal experience of racism. I embarked on a mixed marriage in this country when racism was rife. And my wife and children were being denounced as people whose very presence here would lead to rivers foaming with blood. And I was thrown out of the parental home. So I will myself never waver in my commitment to call out and stand up to racism in all its forms. But we must understand that to dismiss all Brexit voters as racists is simply wrong and completely counterproductive. And as we persuade people of a future within the European Union, we need to persuade them that the European Union is changing. I want Liberal Democrats to be in the vanguard of a Europe-wide movement for reform. Opinion polling shows that disillusion with the European project is not unique to Britain. Across Europe, 1 in 3 members of the public express anti-European sentiment. And rather than let that grow, we've got to take on those who got Britain and the European Union into the Brexit mess. And we can't do that by just going on about the virtues of the status quo. Macron and Merkel are recognizing this in their countries too. They're in a very different place from the position taken by the French and German governments in 2016. Whilst free movement is an absolutely fundamental principle of the European single market, the European Union may yet conclude that protecting free movement, as we must, means reforming free movement. So just as staying in the European Union is essential to the future of the UK, it is crucial to the future of the European Union to have a British liberal voice at the table. To argue as Ed Davey did on Sunday, for a liberal approach to manage migration and to the refugee crisis, for compassion, for the right to a better life, and for respecting family ties. Now, more broadly, Europe needs a positive message of hope for those who look back to the past, because for them, it seemed genuinely better. And for those who've experienced, for example, a decade of depressed living standards since the financial crisis, through no fault of their own. Deindustrialization, globalization, competition, liberalization, automation, all those shuns that were supposed to represent progress have so often meant a move from skilled and respected jobs to crap jobs, from certainty to insecurity. Now, for them, we need a positive message and a positive argument for a reformed Europe, cooperating more, not less, on research, on harnessing new technologies, and setting world-leading standards. It has to be a Europe which can stand up to the threats from Trump's America and an increasingly aggressive Russia. In short, a better Europe, a Europe fit for the 21st century, a Europe focused on its citizens and with the UK at its heart. Now, a deep sense of nostalgia has driven British politics in the last 3 years. But I want you now to imagine a future where the Brexit story has reached its conclusion. We've secured a people's vote and won. We're back at the negotiating table. We're no longer seeking to leave Europe, but once again leading the debate. Now, try to imagine what a liberal, social democratic, reforming government could then bring to Britain. Our overriding purpose would be to restore a sense of fairness and opportunity to a country where both have been lost. Now, I've always been a believer in a liberal approach to the economy, but we're currently getting all the disadvantages of a market economy and few of the benefits. It's an economy unhealthily built on debt, over-indebted households, over-indebted companies, over-indebted government, inadequate investment, stagnant wages, grotesque rewards for undeserving fat cats, for short-term performance, and often outright failure. Yeah, it doesn't have to be like this. A better approach to business isn't an idealistic fantasy. Now, when I left Parliament for a brief exile, I became, and I remain, the chair of one of the country's largest social enterprises. Perhaps for the benefit of the journalists, it's unpaid. But HCCT is a highly successful transport company which combines commercial discipline and social purpose. Now, many companies can and do operate in this way, but it must be the norm and not the exception. We believe that there should be ample opportunities for business to invest and innovate, to make money, why not, and create jobs. But we also believe in active government. We're not afraid to intervene when the market fails. As a minister, I was proud to launch, with the help of my Lib Dem colleagues, the financial tech sector through the British Business Bank and the Green Investment Bank and the Catapult Network, which has created a launch pad for many technological advances as part of a long-term industrial strategy. And that's our model for the future. In the face of relentlessly advancing new technologies, it's easy for people to feel powerless and threatened. So we have to understand and regulate some of the new technologies coming down the track. So that's why Joe Swinson and I are setting up a commission to look at how to turn emerging technologies from a threat into an opportunity. And if we embrace these technologies, try to imagine some of the potential. You know, the potential for robotics in care homes, for machine learning, which can detect the first signs of a malignant tumor, or detect fraud, for blockchain, which can enable massive secure clinical trials, and quantum computing, which can outcompute computers. Now, Britain can and should be a leader in these fields, investing massively in our science and technology base. And also imagine how a government that wasn't distracted by the cost and the trouble of Brexit could use its strength and its borrowing power to invest in the environmentally sustainable infrastructure that Britain so desperately needs. If you travel from, or try to travel, from Workington to Hull, or Swansea to Wrexham, or Dover to Penzance, let alone smaller places on the way. Now, these are truly epic journeys which show how poorly connected modern Britain remains. Even the much-hyped Northern powerhouse has dwindled to little more than an unheeded cry for help. Now, we can start to put this right by breaking with the economically foolish convention of public sector accounting, which treats borrowing for productive investment in the same way as day-to-day spending. The demands of climate change alone require that boldness. If you take the tidal lagoon in South Wales, the Tory government has killed it, and we would resurrect it. And imagine putting the country to work, building the green Britain of tomorrow, with hundreds of miles of new railways and broadband cabling. That is the future a liberal, social democratic, reforming government could bring. We would also want to resurrect a sense of fair play in the way that government raises money. The tax proposals you endorsed this week would be a start. We need to reverse the trend of fewer and fewer people hoarding the nation's wealth. Those on modest incomes should pay less tax. And indeed, Liberal Democrats in government delivered lower taxes for the low paid. But the wealthiest should pay more. Now, our reforms, which you passed this morning, could raise substantial sums. Now, we would not splash the money on short-term spending, It would be invested in a sovereign wealth fund, saving for the future. And that fund would be further boosted by the eventual sale of RBS shares. The public need reassurance that their taxes are put to good use. And that's why we argue for a penny in the pound on income tax, earmarked for the NHS and social care as a stepping stone to a tax specifically set aside for the NHS. And we would concentrate its funding on the mental health crisis, building on Norman Lamb's work in government. And there are other services crying out for money. Schools are seriously underfunded. The police have been cut back to dangerous levels, and crime is rising as a consequence. And local government has been outrageously undermined. Now, addressing these and other interventions requires additional tax. And when the next election comes, our manifesto will spell out progressive tax reforms and also an honest approach to tax. The principle is clear, that every citizen and company should pay their fair share and get something back for what they put in. Because nothing gets up the noses of honest taxpayers more than a government squeezing every penny it can out of small firms while rolling out the red carpet for world-class tax dodgers like Amazon, Facebook, and Google. And to that end, we want a renewed offensive against individual and corporate tax dodging. In addition, we will scrap the outdated business rates, which are destroying our high streets, and reform company taxation for the digital age. Now, contrast all of that with today's Labour Party. From the coterie of people around Jeremy Corbyn, who, until very recently, were on the Stalinist wing of the microscopic British Communist Party. And from economic policies which are based on a nostalgic view of the commanding heights of the economy, which are more relevant to the steam age than to the digital age. And in addition, unlike them, we do not believe in magic money trees and pots of gold at the end of the rainbow. What we do believe in is in the power of education. And Leila Moran has set out the blueprint for a Britain which will prepare young people with both the academic and vocational education they need to get on in life, putting the education profession back in charge, cutting testing and valuing teaching. Reimagining inspection so that schools are judged not on how many boxes they've ticked, but how many children's lives they've changed. And supporting schools who teach the most disadvantaged children. The Pupil Premium was a Liberal Democrat invention and success, and it must be increased so that more money is targeted towards helping children from the poorest backgrounds. By contrast, the present government's financial squeeze on schools is leading teachers and assistants to be made redundant and special needs to be neglected. And all the while, scarce resources are diverted to the Tory party's ideological hobby horse of grammar schools. Selective admissions are creeping back. A generation after the 11+ was consigned to the history books. We should be clear, selection is a byword for division. It sets school against school, pupil against pupil, and it drives down standards overall. It is totally the wrong priority. Beyond school, we have to ensure a better future for all young people. Those with A stars at A level usually leave their hometowns and don't come back. But those who struggle to get a few GCSEs stay behind. The bigger cities and towns have their own university. The rest make do with the local tech. But it's actually the local tech which should be at the forefront of the drive to equip the country for wrenching technological change and global competition. As the fourth industrial revolution takes hold, only the Liberal Democrats recognize that education is for all and for life, and not just for the very clever, the very rich, or the very fortunate. Government has a key role in making all this happen. So I will bring to the spring conference detailed proposals for the individual learning account to finance training and retraining through life, and contrast that approach with the Tories' version of the apprenticeship levy, which is actively discouraging training, and to the Tory axe, which is being taken to funds for lifelong learning. Liberal Democrats would offer young people the prospect of a decent education from nursery on, the lifelong learning required for the emerging job market, and one final piece of the puzzle, the prospect of a decent home. Because nothing illustrates the government's paralysis of will more than the abject failure to get to grips with the inadequate supply of housing. Tory governments under Churchill and Macmillan built 300,000 houses a year. And now they struggle to deliver half of that for a much bigger population. New social house building has almost stopped. Owner occupation is becoming a distant dream. If you remember, the Conservatives used to be the party of the homeowner. And they've now become the party of the absentee landlord and the insecure tenant. Sleeping on the streets has become appallingly commonplace. You've seen it here in Brighton. And it cannot be justified in a civilized society. And meanwhile, the government pursues a failed model under which developers only build and landowners only sell when they can confidently expect rising prices. Big housing developers like Berkeley Homes and Barratt's and Persimmon. Now these are mainly, land speculation machines with a sideline in house building. So what we insist on is that there must be an ambitious program of council house building by councils, building freed from central government control. An end to the enforced sale of social housing. And we desperately need a program of low-cost homes for rent leading to purchase for the first-time buyers and key workers. It can be done. You know, successful, long-standing Liberal Democrat councils like Eastleigh have gone on and done it. There's no ideological dogma. It's just hard work and commitment. And that is what people have come to expect from their Lib Dem councils and councillors. Now, we've begun to imagine a better Britain after the Brexit nightmare. But the challenge remains how to give people a way to engage in politics which offers genuine hope that things can get better. And that's why last week I put forward proposals to remake and open up our own party, to turn the Liberal Democrats into a growing movement. Our party is still very pale and very male, and we've got to change that and keep growing, welcoming more and more people in, extending our trust to supporters by giving them a say in our leadership, opening up the field of leadership candidates and making it easier for people to get involved in community politics and stand for political office. Reaching out, we start from 100,000 members, another 200,000 supporters, and 10,000 more have come on board in just the last 10 days. And thanks to your efforts, we start the job of building this movement from a position of greater electoral strength than was apparent a year ago. At the last conference, I ended my speech by urging that we should all get out there together and win. And I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for answering that call, because we had 75 net gains in the local elections in May. We got 4 new councils in Liberal Democrat control, including mine. We had our best results in 15 years. And shortly afterwards, following a massive effort from Liberal Democrat activists, we had a 19% swing to Lucy Salek at the Lewicombe East by-election. It was actually our best result against Labour for 14 years. There can be no doubt the Liberal Democrats are growing and winning again, and this is just the beginning. The next step is to win and win big in the local elections next year. And Willie Rennie and Jane Dodds and Caroline Pidgeon are readying us for the big devolved elections in 2020 as well. But meanwhile, as we grow, the tectonic plates of British politics are shifting beneath us. The 2 big parties have changed from broad churches into intolerant cults. And those who question the faith are not welcome. The Labour leadership is dominated by people who believe in doctrines that are very far removed from the sensible social democratic tradition that prevailed from the days of Clement Attlee or Gordon Brown. And they, in turn, are the mirror image of the Tory zealots who have more in common with UKIP than their party's one nation traditions. The so-called alt-right, the extremists, are well organized, and they operate as smoothly across frontiers as any multinational company. People of moderate, decent, humane views are being marginalized as this new illiberal international takes shape. Now, much depends on the courage of mainstream MPs in the Labour and Conservative parties. They're losing control, and if they can't stop the rot, they should leave. But we too must be bold. There may be a temptation to be what our colleagues in Scotland might call the wee freeze of British politics, sniffing suspiciously at newcomers and outsiders who lacked doctrinal purity. And we can't afford to do that. We have to become a bigger, more diverse movement. And I would say that if you don't call yourself a moderate, that's fine. I'm a liberal and a social democrat, and I'm very far from moderate in my detestation of what is happening at the extremes of British politics. But if others choose to identify themselves as moderates who hate extremism in their own parties, we shouldn't be quibbling about labels. You know, let them in. And if they're too shy to come in, you know, let's extend the hand of friendship and cooperate with them. Because there are millions of dissatisfied people currently out there waiting for a lead. There are millions who can see that the two main parties have been hijacked by those who want to turn their backs on the modern, interconnected world. There are millions who can see that there are massive challenges: a housing crisis, an aging population, a damaged environment, a fourth industrial revolution, which our paralyzed political system can't handle. Now, these millions of people are potentially on our side, and it's our job to be on theirs. It will require bravery, single-mindedness, and discipline for those in the progressive centre of British politics to make common cause. But it can be done. And I'm determined that our party should be at the heart of it, leading the resistance to the forces of illiberalism, leading the crusade to give the people the final say on our future in Europe, and looking outwards to a changing world with confidence and determination that our values will outlast and outclass the forces ranged against them. So I want to address the public directly. If you demand a better future, this is your chance. Our movement is your movement. It's an open movement with an open leadership. So join it, shape it, build it, because together we can and we will win. Thank you.
my way.